I was born in Baroda, Michigan. That's about 7 miles south of St. Joe and Benton Harbor. And I lived there for a while when my parents moved to Kalamazoo. My father taught at the college in Kalamazoo. I rode a motorcycle year-round up there when I got old enough. And they didn't have foul weather gear. I used a lot of newspaper, as in that picture up there. And that white stuff in the background is snow. And over on my face, I had some oilcloth. And when I stopped to get gas, they thought I was going to hold them up. At the first part of World War II, I was working on motorcycles. And I was running a store in South Bend, Indiana. And they was about to draft me. So I sold everything I had and went to aeronautical engineering school. And when I graduated, all the aircraft factories were wanting to hire me. A little red-headed man with a red mustache, his name was E.E. Finch. He was from Wright-Patterson. He said, don't go to work with them, you'll get boring as the dickens. He said, you'll do this same thing day in and day out. He said, if you come to work for us, with your grades in school, you go to top pay in short order. Then they sent me to Eglin Field to help open up Eglin Field. And I was a civilian now. And I worked there. I was there when World War II broke out. I was there when Jimmy Doolittle practiced taking the B-25s off. Then they sent me to Orlando. And I was top civilian at Orlando Air Depot. And I worked with Charles Lindbergh 6 weeks getting planes ready for the North African campaign. General Hume Peabody, who was the commander of the base down there, wanted me to work on his airplanes without going through the system. And I said, I can't do that. He said, you could if you wanted to. I said, no, I got a boss just like you have. And I said, I don't want to lose my job. He says, well, if you ever get in the service, I'll burn your ass. And it wasn't long after that, they offered me a second lieutenant's commission to stay on the job. I figured I better not, so I went into Marine Corps and left boot camp. I was the only one in there that didn't make PFC. I got to the barracks. I'd been promoted from a private to a PFC. Next morning I went back to school and got familiar with everything there. Went back to my barracks at lunch. I'd been promoted to a corporal. Went back that afternoon to school. When I finished school that afternoon, I went back to the barracks, and the master at arms says, Sassman, get your gear and move out of here. We don't allow any sergeants in this barracks. So that's how fast I went to sergeant. And then they was going to send me out there with an advanced school. I said, I'd rather go overseas. Blip, I was overseas. Then we went aboard a Liberty ship. Was supposed to have 2 destroyer escorts. we got out to sea and they told us we wouldn't have any escorts. So we went zigzag back and forth overseas. We went to Noumea, New Caledonia, and from there we went to Espiritu Santos, and from there we went to Guadalcanal, and that's where we picked up the Pappy Boyington in the Black Sheep Squadron. There was 28 misfit pilots there, and Boyington had been in the Marines and left to go with Flying Tigers, Chennault in China. Well, then his mission was over there. He went to come back to the Marines, and they were going to bust him to a buck private. And Admiral Bull Halsey, he was on our side. In other words, he said, no, he's going back as officer. He said, Boyington, you take those 28 misfit pilots and make a squadron out of them. And that's why they were called the Black Sheep. And then we went to Bougainville, and then we were sending strikes over Rabaul and Green Island. And Pappy Boyington got shot down over Rabaul. And then we were supposed to go on a 10-day R&I to Australia when Douglas MacArthur taxied up to my repair shop on Bougainville. And that ended our trip to Australia. He wanted us to go back to the Philippines with him. So we put a sign on his dugout in the Philippines, with the help of God and a few Marines, MacArthur returned to the Philippines. And then I was in the invasion of Leyte, and I was wounded on Luzon. And I was in the hospital with a boy that was in the Army with the railroad, and we got well enough out of the hospital that he stole the engine, and we went to Clark Field on a little narrow gauge railway. And when we got down there, I wanted to get some Japanese instruments out of the boneyard there. And when I looked down in there, I saw the bottom of a Harley. And the Filipinos always wanted these in Sabun. And I told them, lots of these in Sabun if you dig that out of there. And it was a 43-74 flathead. It was flight red, the color of it, but the tanks were bashed in, and it just been thrown away. So I took it back and fixed it all up. I couldn't get any parts. I needed a battery and I needed a front brake cable. I'd cut the tanks out and straightened them and welded them back up. And there was a MP battalion at Ben Mali that was right on the coast. So I heard about it, and I went down there, and they wanted to know what I wanted. I said, I'd like to get a battery in the front brake cable. Oh, we can't let you have that. What do you know about motorcycles? And they found out that I had worked on motorcycles and knew about them. So they offered to give me a battery and brake cable if I'd do some repair on their motorcycles. And I got that thing going, and I had a lot of fun with it. And then when I was able to, they was holding me COG after my time was up. That's convenient to the government, until they got a replacement for me. Well, after they got a replacement, my commanding officer said, I hear you've been making these watch bands. How about making one for my wife? And I said, well, if I knew what size her wrist was. He rolled up a map and put his hand around it and changed. He said, about that size. So I made a stainless steel band and put the Marine Corps wings on it. Got ready for him. I took it to his tent the next morning. He said, man, that's a beautiful job. You got that done quick. And he says, which is your tent? He said, I'll bring you some liquor. put it under your pillow. I said, I don't drink, sir. I said, if you want to do anything for me, send me home. I said, my replacement's here. And it wasn't 2 hours before I was on the airplane to go back stateside. So then I got out within a couple months, and I went straight to Milwaukee. Before I ever went home, I went straight to Milwaukee. And it was all set that I was supposed to get the Harley dealership in Lansing. And I had to be interviewed by all of the department heads, which all of them knew me because I'd been in factory school in '39. And after they got through interviewing me, Arthur Davidson, the founder of the company, he said, Grover, come on back to my office. I got back to his office. I don't want you buying out no damn dealer. You'll buy a bunch of shit that they couldn't sell it, and your money would be tied up. He said, we've never had a dealer in Lakeland, Florida. He said, I'd like to have you go there. And he had a winter home 20 miles from there. Well, I'd have gone to the moon if he'd asked me. But anyhow, he would come and visit my store 8 or 10 days out of the winter months, a day at a time, and work in the store just like he was an employee. The dealership back then was a regular family deal. Back then I was a fair-haired boy. Today I'm just a number. But I knew all of the founders of the company, and of course I knew Willie G. when he was 10 years old, and John, his younger brother, who was president of the motor company at one time. But see, Willie G's father was the president. And Willie G's mother, well, Willie G looked like his mother. John looked like his dad. But Willie G and John's mother run a catering business because she wanted to do it. She didn't have to. And when we'd have factory school, which lasted 3 weeks, the last night of the factory school, they would hold us there, and they'd have, of course, Willie's mother would cater food for us, and then they would have different department heads of the factory lecture to us. Arthur Davidson was doing his part, and he was telling about how to promote business and how to do business and all, and he said, we've got one dealer here that can tell you how to sell survey cars. That was the three-wheel motorcycle at that time. I didn't know who he's talking about. He said, Grover, get up here and tell them how you do it. I had sold 18 that year in Lakeland, Florida, which was astronomical, evidently. But he was like a daddy to me. I tell you, I really loved that old man. He was good. Gary and Greg, when they were little babies, they had colic. Of course, Gary's about 2.5 years older than Greg, but nowadays you don't hear much about colic. But they would, well, Gary would just cry and cry about driving me crazy. I could take him in my car, he'd keep on crying. I could take him in the truck, he'd keep on crying. So I had a motorcycle with a sidecar, and I put him in the sidecar, rode him around the block, he went to sleep. And then when Greg came along, the same thing. So I've always liked the sidecar, and I got a new sidecar right to this day. When they was growing up, they had come out with this little M50, which was Harley had bought Aramaki in Italy, and I had to put a banana seat on it to make it low enough for Greg. And I lived on Matthews Drive, and it was quite a hill at the top, and I was almost at the bottom of it. But I would hear something, and I'd go back up in there, and they had them a little area there where they were drag racing. And Gary would say, "Greg's got the faster one." And so they'd swap, and Greg would still outrun because he was lighter than Gary, and they had a little motorcycle. I wouldn't let them run the streets. I'd make them come to the store and work, but I paid them. They didn't have to do anything but maybe sweep and wipe off the motorcycles. But then they learned to do mechanics. They figured as long as they had to be there. And they're both good mechanics. And they've done exceptionally well. They've been a real asset. There are not many fathers and children that can work together. But I'm proud of both of them. They do real well. These pictures on the wall are out of my photo album that Lisa got a hold of. They were 4x6, and she had them blown up digitally. I think a firm in Chicago did that. And they're just history of me over the years. A buddy of mine, his name was Bartow Kirby. He's on the right and I'm on the left. I had some hair back then. That picture was taken in '39. That was a 38 I was on, and he was on a new 39. He used to live with the fella that started me riding motorcycles. He delivered liquor for Webb City in St. Petersburg, and he got me a job delivering at night so he could have the night off. And they never would charge me if I had a breakage, but they charged him. Of course, they knew I didn't drink, but that was a 38 that was pretty well equipped back then. That's me in my mother and dad's backyard. That was on a new 4174 overhead, the first year they come out with them. That's the first store I had in Lakeland. That's me in the white coveralls, and the fella on the right, Johnny Gonzalez, he still comes by to visit with me. He worked for me then. That store, I was trying to find a place to have the dealership, and there just wasn't many places, and that had some old wooden doors up on it and a bunch of aircraft tires in it. And Lee Boswell, he owned the building, and I got to be friends with him after talking to him a few times. And he said, "Well, I can move them aircraft tires," and he says, "If you got somebody that can put a front on it." I said, "I can do that." So when I was putting that front on there, people walked by, "Another bar a bit, another bar." Everybody thought it was going to be a bar. And on the left side there was Harry's hamburger joint. He sold hamburgers for 5 cents a piece. And guys would hang around the store there. They'd go there and buy them hamburgers. And on the other side of me, I had a bakery. So we had plenty of food around us. That's inside the first store I had in Lakeland. And that's being the white and Johnny Gonzalez sitting there. Right. If you notice, I got some tires and then some saddlebags. That was a small store, but I sold 38 motorcycles out of that first year. That's a 48 right there. That picture was the 48 Panhead. And that's, they had a rodeo parade in Lakeland, and the girl on the top of the motorcycle, her name was Carolyn Lewis. Her dad was a veterinarian, and the girl on this side and the girl on the other side was Lee Boswell that rented me that first building. And that was my old sidecar. I wish I still had it. The guy, passenger in the sidecar, is John Reed. He's a Nissan dealer in Orlando, right to this date. That was the second building I had in Lakeland. Neva Jane Fickling's father owned that. His name was Roy Langley, and there was a restaurant right beside it. And Arthur Davison used to park his Cadillac underneath that overhang and work all day long in that store. And if you notice there, I've got a sidecar job. I'm on the right, and that's my motorcycle with sidecar that I'm standing by. And on this side is Herb Groves. He worked for me 40 years. He had a sidecar job too. In fact, his youngest son, he took his wife to the hospital in the sidecar to have him born. That's when I was at the factory school, and those windows look white. That's snow outside. I'm right in the center of the front row. That school lasted 3 weeks. And like I was telling earlier, that's the meeting when Willie G's mama brought food in for us to eat, and all the department heads spoke to us. But that was the only school there was to train mechanics back then. That's me racing at Daytona on the beach with Herb standing beside me. I couldn't get a Harley to race because they just didn't have one available. That was right after the war. And I asked Arthur Davison, I said, how would you feel about me riding something other brand? He said, as long as you're promoting motorcycling, have at it. So they were very broad-minded about that. That was a Triumph motorcycle I was riding. The picture there is on Daytona Beach. That is Herb Groves on the motorcycle, number 84. He worked for me 40 years. I'm in the white coveralls, and the other fella there is a boy I went to school with who lives in Pasadena, Texas. Now, his name is Bill Rigdon. That was racing on Daytona Beach. That's me and the boy's mother. That was in 1951. That motorcycle didn't come like that. I painted that motorcycle like that, but we used to sell a lot of hats with a white bill like that. I don't know why they don't put them out now, because we sold a ton of them. The picture there was taken in Milwaukee at the Capitol Drive plant. That was the first K model. That was taken in November of '51. I was the first dealer to ride it. That was 7 o'clock in the morning, and it was 7 below zero when that picture was taken. I wanted to get out there. I wanted to be the first one to ride it. That's the store that my father and I built. That was the last store I had in Lakeland. And that silhouette of that motorcycle, I cut that out of 1/4-inch iron. I wished I'd have kept it, but it was so heavy. It was of a '52 model, and that's when I finished that building, was in '52. Those are '52 model motorcycles on the floor. And that's Gary and Greg's mother beside me at the cash register. And then the dealer from Orlando is at the end of the counter. And then the fellow with a white shirt and a tie, he was our factory rep. His name was George Balmer. And that was in '52. That was the first foot shift motorcycles that they put out on the big motors. That's 855 2nd Street, that picture there. That was the first store I had in Macon, and I sold bicycles, Schwinn bicycles, along with Harleys, and houses across the street, 3-story houses that you could park your car underneath them. They had that much room under them. It's all changed now, except that building has been changed. Grissom Printers are in that building now. And he's bricked up the side windows and part of it. I don't even know whether he's still got that awning on there. I don't go by there much. But Gary and Greg grew up in that building. The picture there is a dealer meeting at the heart of Atlanta motel or hotel, and as you can see, they weren't near the dealers there that they are today. Gary is on the left on the motorcycle. I'm in a suit right in front of him. Greg is on the trampoline over here, and their mother is on the motorcycle in the middle, and Gloria, Bub's wife, is on the other motorcycle. And Bub is the first one with a white shirt on the very back row. That was the dealer meeting in '61. We had the national dealer meeting in Macon in '60, believe it or not. They didn't have the dealers that they have nowadays. That's the first building. I bought 4 acres out here, and I built that building by myself with a forklift. Greg was operation, Gary was romancing. And the picture and the sign was a good buddy, Mark Brailsford. He was on the Harley Factory team. But there wasn't anything out here but just weeds, and there was horses across the street. It was just a 2-lane highway. Everybody said I was crazy for building out here. That was in '72. That's when we were building the new building. That's part of it. Well, that's the front of it as it is now. But it was under construction. And if you look close, you can see the old building inside. We were building over it. The last memories of Dwayne Allman was I was on 2nd Street then. And he called me one morning, said, "Grover, can you go out to my house and pick up my motor and put me some new tires on it? If you can do that today, I'll catch you 747. He was in New York. He said, "We'll fly home and I'll be there about 3 o'clock. So I told him, yeah, I'll go out and get it and do it. And he got in about 3 o'clock, came in. I had a side door on the alley, and I had a bench or a sliding glider, whatever you want to call it, where customers could sit down. He bought a new helmet, and he took his knife out and cut the straps off of the helmet. I said, "What do you do that for?" "Oh, I hate a damn helmet." Well, he picked up his motorcycle and left. That night, over by the on Hillcrest, a truck turned in front of him. He had to lay it down. His helmet came off and he hit his head on the curb. That killed him. I'm the oldest active dealer. That means I started it and I'm still every day. Now there's other dealerships that are older. They've been bought out, sold several times, but they kept the same name. Or maybe they're being run by a grandson or a granddaughter or something like that. Tried to go the extra mile to satisfy people. If they had a gripe or something like that, I'd always try to humble them and try to get them to tell me what their problems were. I said, if you tell me what your problems are, I can help you, but I can't read your mind. I've been called 3 o'clock in the morning. I've gone and got people, and I've sent as far away as Myrtle Beach to do a service for somebody that was broke down. And I feel that it's only what's expected of me to do that. We'll go pick up a motorcycle now within a certain range and not charge a dime. It's just trying to be a good Samaritan. And my boys are great. 9 great-grandchildren. They've got Lisa, my daughter-in-law. She's out of this world. My grandsons are good. I've been blessed, really. I never tried to look down on anybody. I tried to treat them as my equal. And if I live till next month, I'll be 90. I started and I'm still doing it every day.